U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has reaffirmed his claim that the strikes against Iranian nuclear facilities achieved their objective. In a press briefing in the Pentagon, Hegseth called the operation a historically successful attack and said it caused, quote, devastation. Hegseth said he was not aware of any evidence that would suggest that enriched uranium was moved out before the attacks. An initial leaked intelligence report claimed that the strikes set Iran's nuclear program back by just a few months. Well, Hegseth was speaking after Iran's supreme leader said his regime delivered a hard slap to the U.S. and crushed Israel. In his first public statement since the ceasefire between Israel and Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei presented the truce as a victory for Tehran. He also said that U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities had not achieved much, rejecting claims by U.S. President Trump that the facilities were obliterated. Well, for more on this, let's bring in Gaukhar Mukhatzhanova. She is program director at the Vienna Center for Disarmament and Non-Proliferation. Welcome to the program. Gaukhar, Iran says it's suspending all cooperation with the IAEA. What does that mean for efforts to monitor Iran's nuclear activities?
Hello, Terry. Thanks for having me. Well, just one note that even though the Iranian parliament passed the law to suspend cooperation, ultimately it has to be signed by the president. And so far, there's been the executive branch has said that they haven't made that decision yet. So we don't have the final word there. That said, the cooperation with the IAEA has been very difficult right now, and nobody has been allowed to go inspect the sites and see and assess the actual extent of the damage. Should Iran suspend all cooperation with the IAEA, indeed, then we have another layer of crisis, because as a party to the Non-Proliferation Treaty, Iran is under obligation to cooperate with the IAEA and have safeguards on all their nuclear material. So we would be seeing further action at the Board of Governors and potentially kicking the matter to the UN Security Council.
Right.
But needless to say, this whole operation has severely complicated the work of the agency.
Now, there are reports that Iran still has significant stockpiles of enriched uranium and may have moved it prior to the strikes. How credible are those reports in your view?
I think it's entirely possible, yes, that Iran did move at least some of its stock of highly enriched uranium prior to the attack. Now, how much they moved, where they moved, that all remains uncertain. And really, uncertainty is the key word to describe the situation at the moment, with the capability, the extent of damage, and the location of the highly enriched uranium.
What's your assessment of how far the strikes have set back Iran's nuclear program from everything you've seen so far? Because there are contradictory statements out there.
Well, I'm not a technical expert in this regard. I think it's fair to say that enrichment facilities have sustained severe damage, but the exact extent is impossible to tell until we have information from within. And for that, again, we need inspections by the International Atomic Energy Agency and cooperation of Iranian authorities in this matter.
Right now, it doesn't appear that talks are happening between Iran and the U.S. There were some talks going on prior to the bombings. What diplomatic options do you see out there for resolving this issue, given that both sides have taken really hard-line positions?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's very difficult at the moment, and we're hearing also conflicting messages from both sides. On the one hand, the U.S. expects negotiations. On the other hand, we hear from the U.S. president that he doesn't particularly care if there is an agreement at the end of the day, because they have taken care of the enrichment problem. Iran as well is taking a hard line that they were not going to talk. So as a first step, there has to be some kind of back-channel contacts through the mediators. To kind of agree on some kind of framework for the talks, for further talks. Iran has been humiliated in these strikes, right? They haven't been able to mount any significant response to Israel. They certainly cannot mount a particularly good response to the United States without taking huge risks. And so they need some kind of an off-ramp, some kind of an incentive on nuclear cooperation, on sanctions, etc. But the big sticking point remains the demand for zero enrichment. And even if their facilities have sustained severe damage, I think zero enrichment is still a kind of a red line that Iran has stuck to it for such a long time. It would be difficult to step away from it. So they really need to focus on finding some kind of a bridge on that particular subject.
What incentive do you see now for Iran to be transparent about what it's doing regarding its enriching of the uranium and developing its nuclear program? What needs to happen to provide Iran with an incentive and prevent further escalation?
First of all, as I mentioned, Iran as a party to the NPT still is under obligation to put its nuclear material and facilities under safeguards. So first of all, it's a treaty obligation. If they decide that they're no longer going to do that, the next step that would be either withdrawing from the NPT or being found in a violation of safeguards again, with further action potentially from the US, if not the UN Security Council. So the incentive for them is some kind of assurance that there won't be regime change. I think that remains kind of a perennial priority for Iran, and some kind of assurance that they won't be further attacked, and some settlement around, again, as it's the kind of the zero enrichment or some kind of level of enrichment in the future, even if at the moment they don't necessarily have the capability, which again we don't really know. We know that the previously reported and inspected sites have been severely damaged, but whether or not Iran has centrifuges and centrifuge parts that it produced in recent years and did not show to the IAEA, and they might be stored elsewhere, we don't have great level of certainty about the lack of that kind of capability and ability to rebuild if a decision is made to really go for it.
Gaukhar Mukhatzhanova from the Vienna Center for Disarmament and Non-Proliferation, thank you very much.
Thank you.